Hello, amazing artists. Today we're going to talk about neurographic art. Neurographic art was created by Russian psychologist Pavel Peskrev in 2014. A lot of people use it as a focus for their mindfulness. Neurographic art is called that because it looks a lot like the neurons in the brain. It also helps make more neural connections in the brain. We're going to talk about different ways that you can create neurographic art with watercolor or with colored pencil or even just with marker. So we're going to watch this video and then you're going to get to create your own. To start off, you're going to need a white piece of paper and a Sharpie, and you're going to draw a line for 3 seconds. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 3 seconds. And when you are drawing your line, you really want to focus on not thinking about what you're doing, but just creating a line as quickly as you can. After you draw your lines, you want to go through and make sure that all of your lines reach the edges of your paper and don't stop abruptly anywhere in the middle of your page. Now, remember, I said that you were going to kind of scribble your lines, but this doesn't look scribble-scrabbly. You don't want to take your Sharpie and do a really frantic, crazy scribble like this, because that would not look good and it wouldn't create a good neurographic piece of art. You want to make sure that when you are drawing your lines that you are drawing them slowly and neatly, even though it's technically a scribble. All that means is that you are not focused on doing anything in particular. After you've got your line, then you are going to start filling in your corners to make them rounded and more smoothed out. Now, remember, I said a lot of people use this as kind of a way to channel their mindfulness time. Now, what they will do is sometimes people will set an intention at the beginning, a problem that they want to solve. And when they're making their first scribbly line where they're not directing what's happening, it's just happening, they think about what the problem in their life is. And then when they start to round out these corners like this, then they start to think about possible solutions to the problem. Now, of course, you don't have to do this to create neurographic art, but it is an interesting tidbit that you may want to do if that's something that you're interested in. After you get all of your corners filled in, you're going to add more lines. So if you are not quite happy with the way your lines turned out, don't worry. You will get to add more lines to it in just a second. I'm going to work on rounding out all of my corners. Now that I've got all of my corners filled in and rounded out, I'm going to add in some more lines. Now this line does not have a time limit because I'm thinking about my line and I'm looking at placement and I'm trying to figure out what is going to make this a really good drawing. What is going to make this have balance? What do I need to add into this to really make it a piece of art rather than a scribble? You can add images. You see I just drew a heart there. You can just draw lines. It is totally up to you what you do. But you want to make sure that your lines still go out to the ends of the pages. After you draw your new lines, then you can go in and you can start filling in the corners that you've created by drawing your new line. Once you have all of your corners filled in, you're going to want to start thinking about how you can make it better. So you want to find all of the spaces that have corners and make sure that they're filled in. I see I missed a spot right here. And then after you have all of your spaces definitely filled in, you want to go find all the corners that you did fill in already, and you want to make sure that that corner flows into the line. You can see down here, this filled in corner, it kind of just looks like a little knob instead of a flowing curved line. So I'm going to thicken up my line to make that curved corner flow into my line a little bit more. Now, you could drive yourself crazy trying to make the thinness of your original line match the flow, or you can just go ahead and thicken it up. You can even thicken up lines randomly in the middle if you feel like that's something you want to do. Also, if in the middle of the line you see that it's a little bit wobblier than you want it to be, you can go and you can thicken that line up to make it smoother. So you're going to go through and you're just going to make it look good. If you find that there are places where the line meets the corner where you want to add a little curve as well so that it matches the intersections of lines, you can also do that. If you're interested in the mindfulness aspect of neurographic art, the additional lines that you created, that you chose where they go, those represent the control that you have over your own life and that you can direct any decisions that you make. And then filling in the new corners is you focusing on the solution to the problem that you originally started with. So you can make sure that you are getting that. Oh, look, I accidentally ended my line in the middle, so I'm going to make sure I go all the way out. You can add more lines at any point once you've reached the adding more lines, more directed portion of your neurographic drawing. You can add any lines anytime you feel like you see a need for adding more lines. Okay, now we're going to talk about adding color into these. Now, you can choose to leave it black and white if you want to, or you can add color. You can use watercolor, you can use colored pencil, you can use markers. I recommend using at least 3 different colors while you're working. I think it looks really good if you add some value shades in your color, add some lights and some darks within each section. I even like it when my colors start to mix together. So you can use blending to mix your colors that are in nearby sections of your neurographic art to really make it kind of blend together and look good. If you added an image, like you can see I added a heart here, you can use differences between warm and cool colors to bring out that image so that people can see it if that's something that you want to do. So you can use watercolors really effectively in neurographic art. You can also use colored pencil really effectively in neurographic art. You can see here I have colored pencil, and I'm also playing with value here with my colored pencil. I started out by going around the edges of each of my sections really dark, and then I filled in the rest of it using a lighter value, less pressure on my colored pencil to create that value from the dark edge to the lighter middle. Now you can also see that it looks a little soft, and I used a method called scumbling to create that kind of softness in the color, where I kind of like did little scribbles that all started to blend together while I was creating my colored pencil work. You can also see when you look at this, when I move my hand in just a second, that I actually used a gray Sharpie to do this one. And I did that so that I could add a cast shadow of black colored pencils so that it would look like my neurographic lines were hovering above my color. And that's another really cool way that you can make these different and a little bit more interesting. So there are lots of different ways, I hope that you've noticed, to do neurographic art. And there's not really any wrong way to do it as long as you're following the steps of starting off with a scribbled line and then rounding off your corners and then using a more directed line. Neurographic art can look all kinds of different ways. You can use colored pencil, like I said. You can use watercolor to color these in. You can leave them black and white. You can also use marker. You can use marker like the way that we used it with colored pencil and with watercolor, or you can create more neurographic lines with your marker to create a cool layered effect with your neurographic art.